I used to schedule my entire vacation calendar around summer kingfishing. There's no chance I'd be away while the Kingfish tournament or any of the tournaments were going on. And when I think of kingfishing, I think of Paul Dozier. There's nobody that loves kingfishing more. There's nobody that's more passionate about the sport than Paul Dozier. He did it for decades, and now I'm so proud of him. He's running this tournament, and just excited to be a small part of it. So I met this guy down at Comanche Cove Marina. He was 14 years old, and he was rigging ballyhoo, something that he doesn't like to do anymore because it makes his hands peel for some reason. I think probably because he rigged too many. And he was rigging ballyhoo. We were getting ready to go fishing, and his dad's boat was right across the dock, and he wasn't gonna be able to go fishing, but he was rigging ballyhoo to practice rigging ballyhoo. And I said, man, this guy likes fishing. He likes fishing a lot. And we hit it off at that time. I was in college, and I'd come back every weekend when the fishing was good, and the two boats were back to back, and we told stories about what we wanted to do, and we both loved fishing so much that it just, I don't know, that was an instant connection, it felt like.
Yep, old Matt would come down, and we'd be down there rigging up, getting ready to go blue water fishing, and this is in the mid-90s, early to mid-90s, and Matt fished on one of the best boats down there with Captain Harry on the Sea Fan, and my dad had a boat across the dock, and they seemed to always catch more than we did, but I'm not sure how much Matt had to do with that. I think that was probably more Captain Harry, Captain Harry and crew. But it was a friendship born then that's carried on now for 25 years. So I was lucky to meet Matt.
Not as lucky as I was. I've had a lot of laughs.
That's right. We've had a lot of good times and laughs. And we've caught a few fish over the years too together. But yeah, those are the good old days, right?
So what brings us here is to talk about kingfishing. And to me, the memory I have, you love kingfishing, you were into it, but you didn't really have a boat, at least not a boat that anybody else would kingfish in. And that when I passed you and you're going out of, I was in a 21-foot, at that time it was called a marlin, but it was actually an Edgewater today. It's a hull number 1 of that. And we were going kingfishing. That was back, it was probably blowing 15 to 20, maybe 25 out of the east, coming out of St. Augustine Inlet. And here's Paul Dozier in a, what was it, 16-foot?
It was a 19-foot Carolina
Monster,
skiff. I had upgraded then
yeah.
with a 40-horse Evinrude tiller handle engine,
Yeah.
with a bait well that would keep about 8 pogies. And my friend Jason Joseph and I had been in Salt Run since midnight trying to catch our 8 pogies. And to go kingfishing, northeast 15 to 20 knot wind.
It was brutal.
I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. I was coming through the North Cut, and I had a little VHF radio mounted, and Captain Dennis Goldstein saw me behind him, and he got on the radio. He said, "Don't do it, Paul. Don't do it."
You were going.
I was pot committed then, buddy. There was no turning back. But we went fishing that day. It was the Kingbuster tournament. I believe it was in 1994.
Kingbuster 400.
Yeah, we went fishing that day, and we didn't catch anything. It was really, really rough, but I'll never forget, we reeled the downrigger, had ribbon fish on our downriggers, and we pulled our downrigger up we had enough about 12 o'clock. It was getting a little dangerous, and we decided to go in before the tide turned, and there was a seashell on every treble hook of my ribbon fish rig. So obviously we were going too slow, and our downrigger was a little bit further down than it needed to be. But we didn't win the tournament, but we caught a couple nice seashells on our ribbon fish.
But you felt like you had a chance.
Absolutely felt like we had a chance. That's what we did back then. That's what tournament fishing was. You could go out in a Carolina skiff, and we fished at the captain's house, or we fished at the Red Tops, or we fished at Shantytown.
Or Fred Morrow would be out fishing his charter boat
the
at the chum hole.
But you felt that's where the big kingfish were.
Right.
That's what we thought. That's where you caught the big ones. You caught the smokers. You wanted to catch the little ones, you go offshore. And you caught pogies or you used ribbon fish, and that's what you used. And mullet maybe. But
you caught your bait every day.
Yep.
There was no bait guy.
Or you went and Salt Run at midnight.
Right. That's why you had to catch your bait.
Like a real dum-dum.
Yep.
But yeah, those were the times. And reality will tell you that we probably didn't have a chance in my Carolina skiff, but we thought we did. Because I'd go out on Tuesday and Wednesday with my buddies, and we'd catch enough kingfish, and if we caught enough kingfish on the beach at the captain's house, we'd sell them and have enough fuel money to go the next day, and that's how we kept going as teenagers. So, yeah, those were the good old days. And then I went from my 19-foot Carolina skiff to a 23 Mako, from a 23 Mako to a 31 Fountain, from a 31 Fountain to a 31 Yellowfin.
I'll never forget when you said, I'm going to buy that yellowfin. Yeah. You didn't have a job. I don't think you still have a job, but that's debatable.
Yeah, well, that's a different
topic. But you didn't have a job, and you took a job being a captain on a boat to go fish blue marlin in Madeira. Midway Island.
Midway Island of the Pacific Ocean in 2001, and I went over there.
You put the deposit down on the boat before you left.
I did, and when I
with no money.
When I had no money, it was pretty much all I had. But I was going to make some good money in Midway. I saved every dime I had and came back and bought this 31 Yellowfin, and we went fishing. And that was my dream. My dream was to be a king fisherman, and my dream was to go fish this SKA Pro Tournament trail. And we the first pro tournament we ever fished on my own, we led after the first day, and it was an awesome experience and awesome times. But it kind of led into Kingfishing took me over, and like, for example, we were in the Bahamas. We were in the Bahamas leading a billfish tournament, and I flew home on the lay day to fish a kingfish tournament.
I remember you said you'd never do that again.
That was I wouldn't do that today. But we kind of grew through the years with the yellowfins and fished these pro tours and chased these kingfish all over the country. And
I don't know about you, but you mentioned selling kingfish. I didn't catch enough to sell, but when we started fishing the tournaments as well, and loved it. I mean, our whole summer was planned around Division 5 and Division 4 tournaments, and we just wanted to be there. But we had to at least place to get enough money to be able to fish the next one, and everybody would pool up all their money. You get all your buddies, you try to get the Calcutta, eventually the bait guy at $120 a dozen, and it was extremely expensive and very taxing and almost nerve-wracking if you fish this tournament, because all your buddies say they put in $500 each. We didn't have any money. Nobody had any money. So if we lost, it was like you'd ride home with your head down. I mean, you were depressed. And one thing we kind of came to learn is those guys with the triple engine boats, they were going somewhere we didn't know where it was, but they kept coming back with the winning fish. And so eventually we kind of got disenchanted, didn't feel like we had a chance.
Well, we talked about going from the Carolina skiff to the Mako. Well, I had the Mako, and the captain's house was it. That was my honey hole. That's home for me. And I would go out there and go fishing, and all these guys would run down there to, Canaveral.
We didn't know where.
We didn't know where they were going, but we assumed. And every now and then, I'd catch a nice fish, and I think I had a good chance. I'm talking to all my buddies on the radios before cell phones. We didn't all have cell phones, and then you go to the weigh-in, and then here come these big boats from the south. So we had the Mako, then we moved to the Fountain. I bought the Fountain, then I went to Midway, came back, got the Yellowfin. I never really kingfished the Fountain. So then I had the boat, so I'm going down there where these guys are going. That was the deal. So I thought, man, here we go, we got it. So I pulled up to the boat ramp one morning in the King Buster or something. There's this guy sitting over there with a big old tank in the back of his boat, because back then you caught pogies or greenies or whatever, and you use ribbon fish. But if you go down there, if you caught a blue runner on your jig down there on the beach down there, I mean, it's like an instant. I mean, it's like
guaranteed.
It's like, oh my, there's a 30-pounder, guaranteed. And back then, a 30-pounder was significant. So I'm like, well, what's this guy doing over here? And my buddy goes over there. I said, hey, Dan, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm buying goggle eyes and blue runners. I said, you're doing what? You're buying goggle eyes and blue runners? I'm like, well, how much are they? And he says, they're $100 a dozen. I said, oh my God, $100 a dozen?
I'd never pay that.
Yeah, I'm like, AJ, you got $10? Or, yeah, David, you got $10? I got a 20. So I go over there. I think we bought 4. But anyway, that changed the whole game. Now, not only do you have to go run 100 miles, you got to buy $100 a dozen goggle eyes, which then went to $120 a dozen, which today is $150 a dozen. And in the meantime, I don't think we knew it. We were guilty of it, and we certainly weren't doing it purposely, but a perfect storm of events led to us making these long runs, buying this bait, and spending more money led to disheartening the local guy in the Carolina skiff and the Mako.
They had no chance, really.
They had no chance, and there's nothing more disheartening, because I lived it, than sitting at the captain's house or at the red tops and sweating your tail off and just catching an 18 or 20 pounder, and then about 3 o'clock, here comes the Matt Pittmans and the big boats from the south holding up their beers, like giving you the thumbs up, and you're sitting there like, why?
The only thing we were at that point was contributors.
Yeah, that's correct.
We were contributing to the prize money.
That's correct. That's correct. But then we went down there and did it. And I'll just say, there's nothing better than that ride home when you've got that good fish. There's nothing better.
Yeah.
That's like one of the top deals there is. But in the grand scheme of
it went crazy. I'll never forget the first time I found out about what was going on down in Canaveral. I had no idea. Just like you, and we were communicating, but we were all fishing Captain's House or Red Tops, or Chum Hole.
You went to Flagler, it was a long run.
Right, or maybe you get crazy and get to Matanzas and take that chance. But that was all we knew. That was it. Probably 2-3 miles offshore. We were never going to 9 Mile, because that's where all the snakes were, just small fish. And we never even thought to go out to 50 miles and go fish the reefs out there, Elton Bottom and all that. We didn't think of it. But when I found out about the Canaveral deal, old Captain Frank said I could follow him. He wouldn't tell me. We were sitting beside me. He said he was throwing up 30 pounders, 35 pounders. And I looked, I said, why didn't you weigh those fish? He said, well, we weighed the big one.
That's right.
I said, well, where are you fishing? And he said, I can't tell you. I'd have to kill you. But Matt, you bought all your reels from Marty, because I bought my reels from you. Were working at the tackle shop.
Right.
And I bought them from Paul and Marty. You can follow me, but you better bring a lot of gas. Well, I had a brand new 27 container. It had more gas than I could afford to put in it. So we filled it up. We turn around. We're getting ready to go out the inlet. And he does a U-turn in the inlet and comes back and goes back under on a full plane underneath the Bridge of Lions, straight down all the way to Daytona. There was a cop at one bridge, so he pulled them back, and they come out of the cuddy cabin of the fountain with 5-gallon gas jugs, and they're pouring in there. I said, oh my God. He said, I told you to bring a lot of gas. I said, where are we going? He said, I can't tell you. Anyway, we pop out below the rest of the no-wake zones, having we'd never do that today, but it was a different deal. We were trying to race down there, and we get down, pop out of Daytona, Ponce Inlet, and turn right. And we're going and going. I'm on the radio. Where are we going? Where are we going?
Another 25 miles.
Yeah. And we pulled up down there, and buddy, it was God's country. It was clear water. There were pogies all over the top of the water. They were right in the surf, and the kingfish were jumping out of the water. And there was 2 boats there. I think Clayton Kirby was there. Somebody else was there. They're both hooked up. Frank already had bait, of course, so he put it out. And we didn't have any bait. So old Sobo goes up on the bow with the 12-foot cast net. He'd been practicing throwing it for a decade. And we pull into the beach there, and we throw the cast net, and it floats up. And I have to back up because, the waves are coming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Overboard, buddy. He's standing knee high with 2,000 pounds of pogies in the net. So we finally threw him back in the boat, got him back in. He's cussing and screaming.
He's about 100 pounds soaking.
Buddy, I already got a line going out with a double pogie. Like, zzz, there he is. Like, it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a great time.
It was awesome. And that's beach fishing. When beach fishing gets good, it's good.
Yeah.
But we thought those fish just migrated from the south to the north, and we were getting a migration of fish. We've learned now they go inshore, offshore.
Right, they go both. But the thing is that people fished Elton Bottom back in the early days. Some people fished Elton Bottom, but if you go to Elton Bottom and you're using 4-inch pogies and they get beat up in your bait well going out there, you're probably not going to catch a big kingfish. But once the bait guys started coming, everybody started catching blue runner, or buying blue runners and goggle eyes, and you take a 12-inch blue runner out there, and the 40-50 pound kingfish is gonna,
it's candy.
Yeah, that's right. They're like, man, look at that thing. So that changed. That maybe changed the kingfishing again.
Well, sure. For the boat building side, it changed the boat building side as well. We had to work on live well systems and live well fittings that were adjustable, and to try to keep those baits alive.
Right.
And that's a huge business now. all that work, you know, I mean, we killed a lot of baits. But the thing about fishing offshore is, and you know, the tournaments were great. I remember the Jacks tournament with 1,000 boats and the King Buster tournament 400. If you didn't get your deposit in, you weren't fishing.
That's correct.
But the tournaments kind of, as the boats changed, started putting boundaries on the boats. We couldn't go too far south, and the fuel prices surged, so people started fishing offshore. But that made it almost impossible for the guy in the Carolina skiff,
Well,
or at least unsafe.
it was a perfect storm on the tournaments. You know, the Great Recession happened.
Yep.
There was some controversy in some of the larger tournaments in the early to mid 2000s. Probably the mid 2000s. Gas prices went through the roof. The housing prices went to the tank.
Yeah.
And it was a perfect storm of a multitude of things. The tournament numbers and the tournament started getting lower and lower and lower. And, you know, it was still a big deal. It's still a big deal to fish and win tournaments, but the 1,000 boat tournaments were now 200 boat tournaments, and the 200 boat tournaments were now 20 boat tournaments or 30 boat tournaments.
And there was no prizes.
And there was no prizes because the boat builders couldn't contribute and all of that. So, but a big part of that, which I didn't know at the time, I don't think any of us knew, was the regular guy couldn't compete. They couldn't compete, and you know, we started the Wahoo tournament and the Northeast Florida Wahoo Shootout in 2011.
Started trying to think about doing it for Kingfish. It was so successful.
Had a successful tournament, and I thought, oh my God, if we take this format to Kingfishing, it'll be amazing, and I'll make it to where the little guy can trailer his boat to Canaveral and fish where we fish.
Now he's got a chance.
And he's got a chance. And the first year it worked out perfect. Mr. Trailer on a 1975 20-foot pro line won the first Kingfish Shootout.
And we were thrilled.
Yes, we were thrilled. It was perfect. It was exciting. They fished on the beach down there. They did exactly what it was intended to do. And I thought, oh man, here we go. We got it. Gave away a yellowfin boat, which was a great prize, and it was perfect. And everybody got excited. But the numbers weren't what I expected. I thought we'd kill it because of this freedom. You know, people could go fish where they want. But what I hadn't thought through is just because you can go fish there
doesn't mean you can get off work to go fish there on the right day.
Get off work to go fish there, and doesn't just because you can go there. We'd been fishing down there for 10 or 15 years. We knew where to go and what to do and where to catch bait. Well, these people were like, okay, great, Paul, I can go down there, but I don't know what to do when I get there.
Well,
so,
and at that time, for that tournament, a 30-day tournament, the bait guy was already a challenge. When you had a set tournament with a set date, the bait guy would show up at least half the time, and most of your baits would be alive.
Right.
But when the tournament was over 30 days, trying to get the bait guy to come up to bring you bait, and your 1 or 2 or 3 boats that are fishing, was a disaster. We met him out on 95.
Yeah.
We got leaking tanks everywhere. We got buckets in the back of the truck. My truck bed's rusting out.
Ridiculous.
It was a disaster. And half the time he wouldn't show, or he'd say he'd be there at 2, and he wouldn't get there till 6 or 7.
Right.
You feel like I can't go fishing without bait, because if I don't have blue runners or goggle eyes, I've got no chance against whoever was that got a different bait guy and got them.
Yeah. So the Kingfish Shootout was 30 days long, and each boat could choose 3 days to fish any day, and they could weigh a fish each day.
Right.
And the heaviest 3 fish aggregate was the winner in 2nd through 10th. Well, that worked great. The Wicker Bill won first year. It was great. Everybody's excited. Well, the second year, we had 140 boats, something along those lines, signed, which was good. Good. We were happy with it. We were proud of it. It was good. You know, things were still, the Kingfish tournaments were struggling. So we thought 140 was good. But the problem was the first 3 days of the tournament, a guy went down to Canaveral and caught a 40-pounder 3 straight days. The first 3 days of the tournament had a 126-pound 3-fish aggregate, and out of 140 boats, 133 had not declared a day, and he's already posted 126, and I think Wicker Bill won it with 97.
Right.
So everybody's like, well,
They got no chance.
I got no chance. Paul, I've never caught a 40-pounder in my life. I just paid you all this money. We've been in all these Calcuttas, and here this guy has gone down here, and he's caught 3 40-pounders in 3 straight days, and the tournament's over. And half the fleet quit.
Yep.
Half the fleet quit. They didn't even go, they went, and they just didn't take it seriously. Well, ironically, the guy ended up finishing 3rd. I believe that's the year you and Captain Frank caught the 56 pounder, which was the largest kingfish ever captured in Northeast Florida and Southeast Georgia in a tournament until this past year, when there was a 60-pounder, I believe, caught in the Meat Mayhem down there. But so I had.
Well, and the day we caught that was the last day of the tournament, and we had waited to hear, where the fish were. We were out there pre-fishing for days and weeks. Hell, Captain Frank was out there probably at midnight every night pre-fishing, and we knew the fish were there. And but it was blowing. It was rough. It was really, really rough, almost dangerous rough.
But you guys didn't quit.
With a big boat.
You guys didn't quit, and James McNabb finished 2nd that year, and he had. He had caught him in his Pathfinder Bay boat down there at Canaveral, but he didn't quit. Some people didn't quit. But the perception was that, oh, I got to fish on the weekend. I can't compete with these guys fishing on Tuesday or Wednesday. So I had to come up with something else. So then we switched gears and we made it, okay, you can have a pre-shootout portion, meaning you can fish 2 days in 3 weeks. And then we're going to have a shootout day, and you're going to take 1 fish out of those 2 days. Then we're going to have a shootout day, and everybody's going to go on the same day on the shootout day. So hopefully there's a little more head-to-head environment.
Same weather, same day.
Stuff. Everybody's going to fish the same day, and that fish is going to be weighted, so it's going to count more than the fish on the Tuesday.
Well, the other part of that is to have a weigh-in, to have a party, to get people together. And socialize, because that's what we love so much about, back in the day was getting under a tent's fun.
Yes.
It's not bad, and having a band or doing something fun and feeding them people a meal. That's always your deal. You want to cook them a meal, and they love that good food.
Yeah. But the shootout day, was good as well, but it ended up being, for some reason, and the economy was getting better and everything was getting better, and I just noticed. There was just something that was harder and harder to get the boats. I had a great prize, giving away 21-foot yellowfin. It was harder and harder to get the boats, and I was frustrated. And it was.
The other thing was, the guy that caught the biggest fish on the shootout day almost always won.
All but once.
All but once.
All but once. Whoever caught the biggest. So basically, in theory, the pre-shootout portion, the fishing, the 3 weeks during the week was, why don't we just have a 1-day tournament and do it this way? But
the other thing was, I don't know about you, first of all, you had to take the phone calls for 30 straight days.
Yeah.
And secondly, as a fisherman, man, I was stressing every day. Should I be out there fishing or should I not be? Which is fun, but it's also not an event because not everybody else is fishing on the same day.
Yeah.
And then you decide not to go, and then you get the report that somebody caught a 45-pounder, and there's something to be said for having a weekend event that is everybody's there, everybody's fishing at the same time. And leveling the playing field the best we possibly can. Yeah. And so that's what first thing we did was kill the bait guy. You can't buy bait. There's no bait guy. It's not allowed. You got to be a man. You got to go out there like you did in your Carolina skiff, and you got to bring your cast net and you got to catch bait, or you can bring ribbon fish, right?
Well, we were in the Bahamas in 2019, and the Kingfish Shootout was coming up, and I was having a hard time. It was 3 or 4 weeks before it started, and I was not getting any entries, and I was frustrated, and I had been thinking about this new tournament, and I talked to you, Matt, and a couple of our good friends down there. I said, what do you guys think about this? What do you guys think if we did this Old School Kingfish Shootout? It'd be a 1-day tournament. You go fishing, you got to catch your own bait. We're going to get rid of the bait guy. You got
put a boundary on it.
You're going to have a tight boundary. We're going to fish the beach. It's going to be like the old days. It's truly going to be like the way we fished when we were kids.
Yep.
And
we took all the things, like, hey, what's the worst thing about kingfishing?
Yeah.
The bait guy. What makes it unfair?
Well, the bait guy, everybody has a right to make a living and everything. And the bait guy, I was buying bait, 3 dozen baits a day. If I was going to go fish tomorrow in a tournament and I'm allowed to buy bait, I'm going to buy the bait. I mean, you're going to give yourself every advantage you can. But the guy who has a 23-foot bait boat.
You were spending more money on bait than you were on the entry of the tournament and the Calcutta.
I spent more in 1 day of bait than it would cost you to pay the full entry fee in Calcutta for the Old School tournament. And you're going to burn, you know, if you burn 20 gallons, you've burned a lot in the Old School. I mean,
whereas we used to burn 500.
Right.
Sometimes 545 or 46 get you a little tight.
We've run a little tight before, but you know, and I thought, well, if we do this Old School thing one year and it doesn't work, we can always go back. And we talked to Wiley at Yellowfin, and Wiley said, yeah, you know, yeah, okay, whatever you want to do. And so I announced the Old School at the awards of the Kingfish Shootout in 2019. And everybody's like, yeah, that's pretty cool, Dozier, but I don't know. And I'm like, well, I don't know either, but we had hoped.
We're going to do the best we can to make it cool.
We're going to do the best we can. We're going to give it a shot. We had hoped that we'd get 200 or 300 boats. I thought that would be a real win. But the rules being that you can't buy bait, you can't pin bait.
3 mile boundary.
3 mile state waters only.
From Ponce Inlet to Fernandina.
Yeah, and when you catch a fish, you got to take your boat number and you take a picture with the beach in the background with a live kingfish. If you don't have a picture, don't even bring it to the weigh-in.
If it doesn't have the beach in the background.
If the beach is not in the background, forget it. It's not going to happen. But when you get, so the entries start pouring in, the entries start coming in, the interest gets going up.
Oh my God.
Momentum, I'm like, oh, well, we got 200 boats and it's May the 10th.
You called me about mid-May and you said, we've got a monster on our hands.
I said, oh my God, we've got a monster.
Yes.
You know? And sure enough, we end up with 643 boats the first year. But if you go to the boat ramp and you look around, everybody at the boat ramp on a Saturday has got a 18 to 25 foot bay boat, single engine, perfectly capable of going beach.
I couldn't agree more. I love every one of those guys.
Yes, I know you do.
I love those little boats.
But they're great family boats. They're great. They're great everything. And those guys didn't even think about kingfishing because they knew, well, okay, if we're going to go fish a tournament, we're going to have to pay a $400 or $500 entry fee, and then I'm going to have to pay the bait guy $300 a day, and then I'm going to, and oh, by the way, I got to run 50 miles offshore, which if it's choppy, I can't do that in my little boat. So,
well, plus there's one other factor. When the guy's running 180 miles to the south or all the way up to Gray's Reef in the middle of a typhoon, or I mean, what seems like a typhoon, you know, he's not bringing his wife or kid. There's no chance.
That's correct.
There's no chance.
Yeah.
And so the women and the kids became completely disenfranchised.
Yeah, it blew us away, the amount of families fishing together in the Old School.
But before that, it really wasn't the case. You had 5 guys in their bowling shirts, and
you'd have a tough kid. I mean, a tough kid. You know, there'd be an outlier here or there. But the reality of it is, getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and meeting the bait man. I have a 7-year-old son. No way. The Old School, the lines are in at 7. The lines are out at 3. You can't go far. If it gets choppy,
come in.
Right. Come in. Drop him off.
Your total risk is $250.
Yeah, that's right. And so the families and the kids, and introducing the kids to fishing, and then hopefully these kids get a little bug of tournament fishing. And then they say, well, Dad, let's go try this Greater Jacksonville tournament. Let's go do that. And then they go get a taste of that, and then Dad buys a bigger boat. And hopefully what we do, and that's good for everybody too, and then hopefully everybody gets started and the Old School grows and it helps everyone. And that's kind of our deal. But the Old School is
we're trying to make kingfishing great again.
We're trying to make kingfishing great again, and I think
you did.
I think we got a good start on it, and if we can continue our momentum in 2021 and have a good tournament, which I think we will.
Oh, I think we're going to have an awesome tournament. I think you're going to call me mid-May again here, maybe end of May, and you're going to say, we got a real monster this time.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see. We have boats registered already this year from North Carolina.
Yep.
We have boats coming from the West Coast. We have boats coming from the
Panhandle.
Panhandle.
Was the guy that called you yesterday from North Carolina? What size boat?
From Charlotte, 25-foot bay boat from North Carolina, coming down to fish a kingfish tournament. So
spend the weekend in St. Augustine with his family.
It's a great place. We have made a couple slight changes this year. It's 2 days. You can fish Friday. You can only fish one, but you can choose between Friday or Saturday. And the reason being for that is last year the boat ramps just got overcrowded.
Well, and some of the guys couldn't get off on a weekday.
Well,
I mean, that's just a reality for a lot of people is they can't take that day off.
Well, it was Saturday last year.
No, but I mean, if you want to do.
The county asked us to do it on Friday.
Right.
Everybody asked us to do it on Friday. They said it would be better on Friday because not as many people use the public facilities on a Friday. And I said, well, you know, that's great and all. I got no issue with that. But the whole point of Old School is to let the regular guy who has a 9-to-5 job be able to compete in a tournament and have a realistic chance without having to take a day off of work. So we came to an agreement that Friday or Saturday, hopefully we split the field.
Right.
And half of you go on Friday and half of you go on Saturday, and still it levels. Everybody still has the same chance, fish the same hours, and you know, we've expanded the cash payout to 25 places. We have 5 lady angler prizes and 5 junior angler prizes, and you know, we're going to try to make this thing bigger and better every year. And I don't know how far it'll go, but we're
going to learn more this year.
Yep.
We'll adapt and keep going. And
that's right.
And I love it just because it gets people fishing, and anything that gets people fishing is great. I want them to have. I want those kids to grow up and have the same passion that you and I did. And get that taste of it.
And it's scary these days, and I'm guilty of it. The phones, the iPads, everything else, they're holding the phones and the iPads a whole lot more than they're holding fishing poles.
Yeah.
So anything to get the kids out and get them excited, and to see the look on some of these kids' faces. And, you know, Casey Riley was our winner last year.
Oh, buddy, his wife.
And
his kid on the boat.
And 10 or 11-year-old son on their 2004 19-foot polar skiff.
First time kingfishing.
Family. Well, he's fished. He fishes all our tournaments, but on another boat. But they're fishing together as a family because they said, you know what, we got to take a chance, and they won it. And the
probably close to $100,000 by the time you add it all up.
Close to $100,000 with the Calcutta and everything, and just the joy of those people's face, just to see them, the excitement. It just won.
I was thrilled.
It couldn't have been any better. The right people won. I mean, with all due respect, you know, to have a family fishing team go out there and do it, and the top 10, the top 15 was all different types of people. There was
different boats.
All the pros, all the pro guys that fish all the big tournaments. They were all in the tournament, but the regular guys were placing and doing well, and that's what it was all about. And hopefully that continues, and people are excited about it, and I'm excited about it, and makes me want to go out there and try to wet a line for an old pogie. You know?
Yeah, I expect you'll be pre-fishing for your own tournament, even though you're not fishing.
Yeah, well.
Is anybody going to call you and ask you for advice on where the fish are?
Oh, I get a couple calls about advice. People do ask me. They ask me what do you do, and it'll be really interesting this year with the first day. Then everybody's going to call me. Well, where'd they catch it? Where'd they catch it? Where'd they catch it?
Because you're going to know, because you're going to see the beach in the background.
Well,
and you know every mile of that beach.
I'll have a decent idea.
So can you give them some advice, just in general, sitting here, you know, before the tournament? What are 2 or 3 things that you would do, regardless of your boat size, to make sure you had a chance in this tournament?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, people ask me all the time, what do you think? The number one thing is be prepared. Get prepared now.
Get your tackle.
When you get this many boats and this many people kingfishing, these tackle stores, we're very blessed to have great tackle stores. Strike Zone is stocked to the gills with everything, but they're not. I mean, you're going to run out. They're going to run out of something, you know.
Right.
So get it now while everybody's got it. Get your ribbon fish. Secure your ribbon fish now.
Get your rigs tied.
Get your rigs tied. Get ready. Get chum. Go ahead and buy your chum and put it in the freezer. I think that.
Whoa. Speaking of chum in the freezer, tell them a story about how committed you were with your chum.
Yeah, I used to take the chumming.
These are kingfish fails.
Yeah, these are kingfish fails. We used to take a wood chipper, and Russ Russell and his dad Rusty would let us go down on his dock. So we'd go out in my Carolina skiff and we'd fill up the boat with pogies. And it would be 100 degrees in July, and we'd go down to the dock, to his dock, and chip these, throw the pogies in the wood chipper, and it'd go everywhere.
One time you got so many pogies, you called me, wanted to know if I could buy some fresh chum.
Yeah,
I'm in. Sign me up.
Yeah.
I said, but what are you going to do with it?
So anyway, we take this, we fill up a chest freezer at my mom and dad's beach house full of pogie chum, fresh pogie chum, fresh.
Yeah, real fresh.
About 100 degrees. And I didn't think, I just stacked it all on top of each other. And needless to say, it all rotted in the freezer, and we had to throw the whole freezer out. It was so nasty.
Were mom and dad pretty happy about that?
They were thrilled. They were thrilled. That was one of my finer moments.
Yeah, I've had a couple myself.
Yeah, you have. But back to the advice and the thought on what to do. I think, and I'm guilty of this myself, everybody puts a lot of stock into live bait, and you got to have live bait, and you can start catching your bait at 5 o'clock in the morning. But back in the old days, which we're talking about when I had some success in my Mako and in my Carolina skiff, on the tournament day, I would go out at checkout, and instead of going and trying to catch pogies, if I didn't have any luck in Salt Run or whatever, I'd go fishing, and I'd put my 2 or 3 ribbon fish out, and I'd fish that morning bite from 7 to 7:30.
Wait for the sun to come up.
Wait for the sun to come up. The pogies come up, and oh, by the way, king fishermen like to talk, and you'll hear on the radio, I caught him by the pier, I caught him here, so you don't waste a bunch of time running up and down the beach. I would say out of the top 15 fish last year in the old school, 10 of the 15 were caught on ribbon fish anyway. So,
and they were caught later in the day last year.
But a lot of people waste all day trying to catch bait, and they just give up. You're going to catch plenty of fish on ribbon fish, dead Spanish mackerel, stuff like that. And I think pogies are overrated. I think that's the moral of the story. Go fishing, use your ribbon fish. If the bait shows up, great. If not, just use your ribbon fish, because, oh, by the way, the winner's going to get caught on the ribbon fish anyway.
A lot of times.
7 times out of 10 would be my guess. So eliminating the bait guy makes the ribbon fish that much more valuable. So securing good ribbon fish now, so you're prepared in June the 11th and 12th for the old school is probably tip number 1. And don't put too much stock in pogies. If they're there, get them, but don't waste all day trying to catch bait.
Yeah, you want to have a cast net, make sure you're ready.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If they pop up, there's nothing like a live pogie. But.
Absolutely. Well, I fished a tournament last August, and I screwed around. I did exactly the opposite of what I'm advising to do. I rode around and tried to catch live bait till 10 o'clock in the morning like a dum-dum, and I got down to where we were fishing, and the guys got, Fred Miles has the winning fish in the boat. He's done.
It's over.
It's over. He's won the tournament, and I hadn't even put a line in the water. I'm like, well, he did exactly what I tell everybody not to do, what I tell everybody to do, and what do? Exactly opposite. So I'm a dum-dum, but that's my advice. Don't, if the bait's there, get it. If not, go fishing with your ribbon fish for 2 or 3 hours and your Spanish mackerel. And then when the sun gets up, like you said, and the pogies have not been, there's 600 boats beating on these pogies, then go get your pogies. So.
Sure. I've got one I would do is I would watch the tides. Take a look now and look at what the tides are going to do, because the tides influences beach fishery tremendously. Number 1, you got to be able to get there. So if it's dead low tide when you try to put your boat in the water, that's going to be a problem. So then you're going to be mad and you're going to have a bad day. So maybe think ahead a little bit on the tides and pay attention to the tide, whether it's Fernandina, Mayport, or St. Augustine. Can you go out of Ponce as long as you go north?
You can leave from any inlet. Okay. It doesn't matter. I don't care. You can put in Savannah, but don't put a line in the water outside of the boundaries.
Right, the boundaries.
Right.
But pay attention to the tides, and also that's good. The tides are going to influence that tide line where that water comes out, whether it's Mayport or wherever, on the edge of that tide line, or when it switches. A lot of times the fish are going to be on the change in tide, maybe not at dead low or dead high, but you want some moving water. Just pay attention where you're fishing. Be in the better water. Be where the bait is. And the tide lines are going to have a lot of influence on that.
Yeah, I've always had better fishing on a high, beach fishing on a higher tide, high rising tide on the beach, because the water cleans up a little bit.
Sure.
Which makes sense. So, but if you're going to fish around an inlet, like you said, at the start of the outgoing tide, when that tide line comes out of the inlet,
be there.
Be there. Yep. Be there.
What would be another piece of advice? What about where to fish?
How go?
Name off a top 5 spots that would be famous for this area.
Red Tops would be number 1, I'd say, and then
a lot of money's been won of the Red Tops.
Chum Hole, a lot of money's been won there. Captain's House, we've spoken of the Captain's House.
That's home.
Matanzas Inlet. Up there in Fernandina, they fish. They call the Smiley House up there, kind of off of right there in the slough at Nassau Sound. That's given up some big fish over the years. And the Fernandina jetties, you know, that southern tip, the boundary's the middle center of the St. Mary's River, so you can't fish the north tip, but you can fish that southern tip. And I believe it'll be high tide in the middle of the day, so that should have some clean water around there. So that'd be a real good spot to try as well. But you know, anywhere along there.
Even down in Flagler.
Yeah, Flagler's
Off
a great
of Flagler,
spot.
I don't know, that wouldn't won that last year, but a lot of those top 10 fish came from
Yeah,
down there.
well, basically it's like anything else. Where you find the baits, where you're going to find the fish. Look
Right.
for the birds, look for everything. They could be anywhere. So there were fish caught from the northern boundary to the southern boundary last year, and I expect the same this year.
One thing that I wanted when we first started talking about this, and we talk about the boundaries, we talk about the rules, it's pretty serious. And it was very important to me because of the controversies that had happened in the other tournaments over the last couple of decades. We're going to make sure everybody has a chance.
That's
with
right.
the 3 mile boundary, the no bait guy, the small boats got a chance, and everybody's going to be honest.
That's right. That's right.